Hey, Lee Robinson here at American Sentinel Canine. We are breeding Slam and Elsa right now. And while I wait for them to come apart, I figured I'd go ahead and discuss a topic that I've been asked to discuss, and that's cold dogs. But to discuss cold dogs and what they are, I think it's also important to address a couple other traits, and that is breeding for polygenic traits, and also being honest with oneself as a breeder. And then additionally, are bandog breeders really honest? Do they really believe what they say they believe? And I think you'll have to excuse the noise. I'm in the kennels, so they're going to occasionally bark or start slamming on the sides of the kennels and whatnot. But anyway, so why are we putting certain dogs together, band dogs together in general? Let's look at that before we discuss what a cold dog truly is, because I think there's some people out there that think they know what a game dog is, or what a cold dog is, or what a cur is. But in my opinion, probably 99, 98 or so percent of the band dog breeders really don't know, or haven't ever even perhaps tried to really understand what it means to be a game individual. Game dogs are not as common as people would like to believe that they are. And if you've seen your dog quit in a task after the dog was confidently started in a task, then your dog is probably should not be considered game in that task. Okay, that's just the way it is. Now, if it's before the dog started, and once the dog started and it did better, then you might be able to say that the dog's committed to that task. But after it starts and has shown excellence and then later on stops performing, then no, you're not dealing with a determined or game individual. Secondly, polygenic traits and breaking them down into the components. This is the whole purpose of a band dog program to begin with. It should cause cognitive dissonance for a person to say, I'm only going to breed a perfect individual, a dog with no faults. But then they breed a band dog that is a combination of two breeds. Why? Because if it's a combination of two breeds, that means the two foundation breeds that they used were not perfect and had to have something different added to them to attempt to produce the perfect dog. Now, even if you make that attempt, that doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? Because there's going to be culls in that litter. There's going to be a population distribution of genetic variation in those offspring. Some of them may have the desired traits. But let's be honest, in that first generation, sometimes you get more consistency than you do in the second generation. And that's because, let's say you breed A with B, or AA with BB. The offspring are going to all have a single A and a single B. So there's going to be a consistent heterozygous type in the first generation. In the second generation, when you breed AB with AB, you might get A with A, you might get A with B, you might get B with A, which is called AB, or you might get B with B. All right, so now you're going to have more genetic variation in the second generation than you did in the first, and that's just for a single trait. Well, what's going to happen when you deal with the entire genome, the entire genetic code of that organism? All that is amplified. And so the most consistent offspring are going to be found in your first generations or in your deep generations. That second and third generation is going to be kind of all over the place. And so in that second and third generation, what you're going to have to do is look for those individuals that do have the perfect phenotype, but know that there's going to be few of them, or save some of those individuals that are expressing components of that phenotype but may not have the complete combination. Let's say, for example, a combination lock is, let's say there's 4 digits, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, you might get 1, 1, 1, 1, you might get 2, 2, 2, 2, you might get 3, 3, 3, 3, you might get 4, 4, 4, 4, or you might get a various combination of those numbers, 1, 2, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 2, 4, etc. Well, after many generations of refinement, you can select the combinations that you need, but it's going to take, let's be honest, it's going to take more than one person, one lifetime. And this is why it's important for me to have partners to do it, because I can't do it all by myself. I need people out there like Keaton Temple and Ryan Keaton and Casey Myers, other breeders that are out there that are helping contribute to their program to put their piece of the puzzle into the total picture. And this is one of the things that I like about the American Sentinel program. We are actually focused on character when we're finding people that are going to become part of our program. Yes, we will sell dogs to people off of short conversations and trying to get an idea of who they are and what they need. But to become part of the breeding program, I'm going to have to get to know that person a little bit better, because character is a component of teamwork. And it's not really a business partnership, don't get me wrong. Nobody else is going to tell me how to breed my dogs, and I'm not going to tell them how to breed their dogs. I might make recommendations, or they might make requests, or recommendations. I think that has to be done in limited amount and also in perspective, meaning it would be foolish for me to tell one of my quote unquote team partners how to breed their dogs if they live with that dog day in and day out. I can tell them what I see, I can tell them what I think, and I can tell them what I know about the dogs and the ancestry, but they live with that individual. And because they live with that individual, they should know that dog's individual traits better than me. Now, that's not always the case. There are some people that have a hard time seeing what's in front of them, and sometimes they may need an eye of another person that perhaps has more experience or education. But the goal is to have people develop those skills and continue the program. And so when you break those components of a polygenic trait down into its individual parts, we realize that's what the bandog program is about to begin with. The bandog, ideally, is to produce a dog for protection work or catch work by combining the attributes of the foundation breeds, assuming that you're using a mixed breed combination of bandog. Now, if you want to say, well, I'm breeding purebred Presa and they're a bandog, okay, fine. If you're saying I'm breeding Cane Corso or Borbles or American Pit Bull Terriers, purebred, and they're bandogs, fine. I'm not going to disagree with that. If you want to call Malinois bandogs and say that you're breeding them purebred because they're used for man work and protection work and they're kept on a leash and blah, 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 fine. I'm not going to disagree with you about that either. But if you're combining these breeds to produce a mixed combination and you say that you're not going to breed any dog that is less than perfect, well, you're wrong. It should cause cognitive dissonance, which means some people don't know what this word means, or phrase means. And what it means is you should have stress from the contradictions of your viewpoints. To say that you're not going to breed any dog that's less than perfect, but then the foundation breeds are different, that means neither one of the foundation breeds are perfect. You're trying to add something to end up to the perfect result. And this is where I think it's important to understand what gameness truly is. Gameness is a polygenic trait, and that's why it's rare. It's difficult to get that right combination of genes that produce the type of determination that we expect in a truly game dog, but it is genetic. And because it is genetic, it can be captured. However, what are the components that we must have? Well, I can tell you whether gameness is a rheostat. All right, there's been many great breeders in the past that have acknowledged that it is a rheostat, meaning it's a dial. It's not an all or none type of situations. There are levels. There are some that are hard rank curves. Then there are some that are a little bit more determined than others, some a little bit more determined than that, some a little bit more determined than that, some more extremely deep game dogs, and then there are some that are so determined that they will not quit until their deathbed, and even then they will continue to try to continue their task and die in the process of moving forward to work. All right, those individuals are rare, but how do you go from a rank cur to an extremely determined individual? Well, the goal is to minimize the effects of the stress. That's how you do it, where stress doesn't have an impact on that individual. This means we're going to have to improve the respiratory system, so running out of air is hard to do. The dog is going to have to be able to breathe, because if a dog's out of breath, its gameness or determination is going to be tested quicker because there's more stress. We want to eliminate the response to that stress, and one of the ways of doing that is to eliminating the stress to begin with. So an improved circulatory system is one component. The ability to breathe underwater is what some people say. That helps. Another thing that you might need is an ability to be athletic, meaning the skills. All right, let me pause the video for just a minute, because Slam and Elsa came apart, and I want to go ahead and pause it so I can separate the two. Okay, we are defining what are the components of gameness. And I said air. What else? Pain tolerance. Oh no, I said we were talking about agility. Some people might say, well, that's not really a testament of gameness, because gameness is a measurement of how that individual takes stress. But if we can minimize that stress, again, then we're maximizing the expression of determination. However, a lot of people want to see how does a game dog, how does it respond when it's on the bottom or things not going in its favor. And this is where another component comes into play called pain tolerance. An individual with a high pain tolerance, it may be taking the physical damage, so it appears like it's taking stress, but if it's tolerant to that pain, then it's less stressful to that individual. Now, on that note, let me discuss a genetic difference between men and women. You can test this with your friends or family. Get 2 pencils and sharpen them really sharp and hold them side by side, and then poke the back of the arm of a person, but don't let them look at it, and ask them how many pencils are they being poked with. And as they guess while they're not looking, move those pencils further apart and further apart on the back of their arm. And what you will find is that men can, generally speaking, have the pencils oftentimes double the space of women before they recognize that it's 2 pencils. They feel it, the contact, and you got to touch them at the same time. If you go boom, boom, everybody's going to feel 2. But if you do them press them at the same time and release them at the same time, then men will oftentimes think it's 1 pencil when it's 2. And you have to separate them further and further. And when you get them far enough, everybody will be able to tell that they're 2. But the distance of how close they are together is dependent, very much influenced, I should say. Not dependent, because some men are sensitive and some women are not sensitive. But in generally speaking, the men can go twice as far as a woman can before they recognize that there's 2. Why? Well, testosterone decreases sensitivity. It may also decrease the development of sensitive nerves. Men have a higher pain tolerance. A lot of people women will take offense to that statement. They'll say, what about childbirth? Let's be honest here. Childbirth is not tolerating pain, because tolerate means to choose to take it. A woman gets pregnant 9 months before childbirth. So the distance between getting pregnant, the act of getting pregnant, and the consequence of giving birth is so far apart that they're not really choosing to endure that pain. Okay, they don't really have a choice. That baby has to come out. All right. Tolerance means I have a choice to fight or flight. Okay, or freeze. I can step forward and say I'm willing to take this, or step back and say I'm not willing to take this. That's what tolerance means. Now, if a man doesn't feel the pain, you might say, well, is he really tolerating it? And to some degree, no, he's not. So in that regard, maybe a woman does have a higher pain tolerance because they do feel it. But in other ways, maybe a man has higher pain tolerance because he doesn't feel it, because he has less nerves in terms of sensitivity. And so pain tolerance is a component of gameness, because obviously if you don't feel the pain, you're going to be less likely to quit. It's not impacting you. You're able to handle that stress, the physical damage, without the consequence of the stress. All right. And then also prey drive is going to come into play, and respiratory system is going to come into play, and structural soundness is going to come into play, and conditioning is going to come into play. And all of these, gameness is a combination of so many things. The endocrine system is definitely going to come into play. I believe epinephrine has a lot to do with it. Not cortisol. Cortisol is a after effect hormone. It's a stress-related hormone after the fact that deals with inflammation and recovery. Epinephrine deals with it right here, right now, while it's going on. All right. It increases tunnel vision, focus. It also decreases environmental awareness of what's going on around you. It increases blood flow. Epinephrine is also known in MMA fighters to be elevated or to impact their emotional commitment in a stressful situation. So the endocrine system is definitely going to play a role in gameness. Well, anyway, in this video, I wanted to go ahead and discuss a couple of things. I think we've hit all the components, and that is breeding for polygenic traits by breaking it into the components. What is gameness? What is a cur? A cold dog is a dog that may have some of the components of gameness, which means like pain tolerance or athleticism, or a cold just means it tolerates the pain without responding to it like pain. That may not be a primary component, but if you have sensitive dogs, that becomes a primary component. All right, and this is where I want to address bandog breeders as being dishonest when they say they won't breed a dog that doesn't display all the traits that they're looking for, but yet they're combining different breeds, whether it be the American Pit Bull Terrier, the American Bulldog, the English Mastiff, the Neapolitan Mastiff, the Boer Bull, the Cane Corso, or in some cases even the herder breeds like the Malinois, the German Shepherd, the Dutch Shepherd, etc. If you're combining different breeds, then you have no business saying that you're not going to breed a dog that's less than perfect, because all of your foundations are different, which means you're trying to make something different, and therefore the foundation cannot be perfect in your eyes. It may be perfect for its standard, but it's not perfect for what you want. So if it's, don't tell me that you won't breed anything unless it shows you what you want, because you're exactly doing that if you're mixing dogs. Y'all take care and have a blessed day.